Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how the very pro-globalist and very richly rewarded by the globalists people are immunized from all the effects of globalism. So they're heavily pushing globalization, talking about how wonderful it is, but whilst they're completely immunized against its many negative effects. So I just want to talk about this sort of overall. Now, I recently was at a lunch where, again, these pro-globalists, they talk like children. It's quite amazing. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Trump is a convicted felon," and all of them were repeating these globalist bullshit CNN, MSNBC talking points, and I thought, and they all hold very senior positions in government and big multinationals and that sort of thing. And the way they were talking, are you kids? Are you still doing like first year gender studies at some third tier university? Because that was the standard of their comprehension and analytical ability. But I want to talk particularly about how they're immunized and how they don't suffer the effects. Now, all of these people live in areas that are 99% white. They all have houses that are $5 million plus, investment portfolios that are another 5 million. This is a minimum. Some are quite a bit better off than that. Now, they're not in the stratosphere of Bill Gates rich or something, but they're doing pretty good. And they have boats moored in the harbour and doing cruises that are 30 meters long. So they're doing pretty good. Now they spend over $100,000 a year on $100,000 on a vacation. Some are spending multiple hundreds of thousands a year on vacations. They've got $300,000 plus of motor vehicles in the driveway. When their kid turns 18, they get a car that that I couldn't have afforded when I was 18 by a long stretch. Anyway, these are people who talk about mass migration is needed. It's absolutely essential. It's a good thing. Only Nazis would disagree. I reckon if you went into the houses of the people who disagree, they'd all have swastikas everywhere. This is the level of conversation that you get. They're not. These people aren't particularly bright. Nor do they have to be, by the way. These are people that were gifted jobs. You're talking to people that are living this sort of life, and they've never been for an interview. There's never been a cost that they can't afford to meet, or they've had difficulty meeting, or so on. Things that I take for granted as part of day-to-day living causes them huge sort of stress, and you can see they're quite childlike in their ability to deal with even a small amount of stress in their lives because they're just not used to it. Now, so they live in areas that are again 99% white, and even the people that aren't white are the rich multi-gazillionaire Chinese or rich Brahmin Indians or something like that. They're certainly not dealing with the peasants. Now, the peasants might come and mow their lawns and clean their pools and clean their houses and this sort of thing, and do odd jobs. There's part of their rockery in their ornate garden. There's been a bit of rain, and part of the rockery is when they just want someone to come along and fix it up, put the rocks back in place or something like that. And so they'll use the peasant labour for that. But that's about all. That would be the complete sum of their interaction. They don't use public transport because it's vulgar. But anyway, they live in an all-white area, so if they do use public transport, they won't have much of an interaction with non-white people or hooligans or something like that. So they don't have to do your mass migration is something that's far away. Now they they talk about how wonderful mass migration is, but most of them add that they don't want those people, those mass migrant peasants, because they've seen them, the people that come to clean their pools or something. They don't want those people living, I don't want them near my daughter, I don't want them near my son, or I don't want them near my wife, because the wife can go out in her little skimpy shorts and jog around the neighbourhood, and no one says anything. She doesn't get harassed or whistled at. But I don't want those people here. I don't want my wife suffering. So they openly concede they don't want to be around those people. They want them. They openly concede that their behaviour is undesirable. The mass migrants, that is, they openly concede that, but still say it's a wonderful thing. But say, well, we don't want to have to put up with it. We don't want to have any of that shit near us. So it's I mean, how do you square that away? But their ability to immunize themselves is the material point here. If they couldn't immunize themselves, then they wouldn't be on board with it. So they're parroting the same talking points as Trump is a convicted felon. Well, the things he said, he's literally Hitler. They'll come out with that, but then when you ask them, say, okay, well, what has he done that makes him? I don't know. I can't remember. I can't think of anything. Well, why? Are you a Hitler lover? And then they'll try and come back with things like that. So now there are many other ways that they're protected and immunized from the effects of the globalist policy. Now the key globalist policies, if you're going to boil it down, are wealth transfer away from men to straight white men to white women being overwhelmingly in support of the policies that underwrite globalization, and this idea of equity and equal outcomes, this sort of stuff. And if you look at voting patterns, say in the United States, but here in Australia too, if it's women under 30, then 2 out of every 3 women this is unmarried women, by the way, unmarried women will vote for leftist candidates that are very, very much on board with globalization, climate change, feminism, all that sort of stuff. And they'll vote for them too. But if you get down to like college kid age, say even white women under the age of 25, then it's 4 out of 5 young women will vote for the leftist thing, the mass migration, the feminism, equity, and all that sort of stuff. So the women are very much the constituency of the globalist left. So just looking at the voting patterns alone sort of gives the game away. But the wealth transfer, like through divorce law and these sort of things, and just gender hustling and grifting, creating all these artificial bullshit jobs that women do. And then the video I did previously, where there are more people working in human resources than there are people working in the entire agricultural sector. Or there are more people, again, overwhelmingly young women, college kid age women, waving placards and doing street climate protests. There's more people in working at these NGOs doing that than there are the entire amount of people working in the manufacturing sector, which just shows you how perverse things are. So wealth transfer from men to women, and then from white people to black and brown people, and from the citizenry overall to the rich classes, the real estate holding classes, and the big financial end of town, BlackRock, all that sort of stuff. So there's a guy who gets he's getting divorced, and he's hired some hot looking blonde chick in the marketing department where he works. He's the CEO there, but it's a branch office CEO job, so he's maybe getting $350 a year in that job. Decides to take off with this young blonde chick out of marketing, and gets divorced. Now it looks like it's going to get messy, and the ex-wife looks like she's not going to go down without a fight and without a ruckus, and she wants to publicly humiliate him and give him a hard time because he's run off with the hot young blonde chick, this sort of thing. And so the company moves in. Now they're very much part of the globalist cabal, and they decide they've got to intervene to patch things up. So they tell him, well, give her the whole house, give her everything. We'll give her a special consulting job on big bucks, but she's only going to get that special consulting job on, say, 200,000 a year if she does what we want her to do. We want her to go quietly, and we want her to not make a single fuss or anything like that. So that's well more than any child support or alimony that she could get by screwing you. So we'll do that. So we'll take care of her. Then we'll arrange for you to have to be appointed to numerous boards of directors all around town, and paid positions with great vacations, lavish vacations. So we'll bump your income up from $350,000 to $2.5 million a year. On top of that, we'll give you an interest-free loan, so that you can buy a new house in a nice area, and then in a few years' time, when everything's calmed down, we'll just forgive that loan, and that'll then be a gift to you, and you don't have to pay us back. So they'll effectively, well, not effectively, actually, literally replace everything he's lost financially, even creating a better outcome for him. So he's actually better off than he was before the divorce. And so he then owns, a $5 million house or something like that, and is living financially at least a great life. And they came. Now, if you're an ordinary sort of middle class, guy, just you worked hard, you've been careful with money, and you bought the house, and your wife decides to become a lesbian, just walk out the door or something, anything at all. But the marriage contract has no value. The forces of social engineering will move in and will heavily support her over you. So you're screwed. You're fucked. You're going to lose the house and this sort of thing. Technically, you're meant to get 50-50, but they'll say, well, you're better off than her. You've got better employment prospects, or higher income earning prospects. There's a couple of kids. So what we'll do is we'll effectively give her everything, and you have to pay child support and alimony forever, until the kids turn 25, 26 years old. So financially, you're fucked. You will never own another property. You're screwed. That's the end of the world financially, the end of your life. So that's how it plays out for the ordinary dude in the street. Someone who's committed no crime, worked hard, been careful with money, being a good, honest, upright citizen. They are screwed, all because of the feminist agenda and the globalist social engineering agenda. Gender hustling, creating division in society based along gender lines. But this rich guy, he spared that, or the globalists are looking after him. He spared all that sort of stuff. And I've noticed too, with say, people in government, maybe they're a minister in government, or maybe some active role, that they'll suddenly get very well looked after, and it'll be accepted. This is what you do. You look after your buddies, and they'll be given, a chairman's role on multiple committees that pay reasonably well. They'll get extra benefits and international travel, all paid for by the taxpayer. They'll get consulting jobs. They'll be fixed up with lucrative speaking tours and engagements. They'll get a lucrative book deal, and so on and so on. So they'll be fully compensated by, looked after, so that the financial effects of the divorce on them are about zero. And the same goes again. They don't want her creating a ruckus and looking out for going to the media and making stories about how the guys are this and that and so on. So they'll also fix her up with a nice job. Not a job. She's not going to do anything. She's just going to get paychecks for doing nothing. But it's to keep her quiet. She's being bought off. And as recently a politician left his wife for some hot young chick who was a staffer, and again the ex-wife was richly rewarded by the taxpayer, and handouts and gifts and vacations and consultancies and goodness knows what. Same goes for a guy who was a heavyweight. I think it was in the education union, which is the only union really that the globalists didn't attack. If you were part of the air traffic controllers union, they would come after you and they would crush you. But if you're part of the teachers union, for some reason the globalists decided to leave them alone. In fact, if anything, they got a lot more power than they previously had. And so as a guy, a heavyweight, some dude in the union, again, he ran off with some hot young babe, and I didn't think she was that hot actually, but anyway, he ran off with this young chick, and she went from the young chick then was on some, she was some junior flunky in the marketing department, and she was on maybe, I don't know, $100,000 a year, or not even that much. And as soon as he takes up with her, she's given her income increases to $1 million a year. This is someone who and I've met her and spoken to her. She's a fucking idiot. $1 million a year, you got to be kidding. So again, the globalists have moved in and think, no, we're going to look after this guy. He's important to the globalist sort of messaging. He's important to the globalist function. He's on board with us. He's facilitating, illegal people movement. I mean, he's a contributor to the globalist, the ideology, and so we're going to look after him and reward him richly. So he gets again, the same pattern appears: numerous consultancies, speaking tours, and fuck knows what. And so his income goes out of sight. And his ex-wife again is given a very lucrative do-nothing job, also in the union, so she doesn't create problems or make a fuss. And he's now, just only a couple of years down the track, he's now far better off than he was previously, because they moved in. Now, none of this is real. It's all artificial. They've decided we're going to look after this guy. He's valuable to the globalist system, and we're going to look after him. And but anyone else would be devastated and wiped out by that. They would be harshly treated by the courts. They'd have the financial shit kicked out of them. Whereas this guy instead can not only continue on with his life, but continue on with a lot of money. And again, just the international trips and all that sort of stuff that he's able to get all paid for by the taxpayer. He's able to enjoy a very high quality of life, very high standard of living, when in reality he should suffer the consequences of the policies that he supports, and that the policies, as in the globalist policies that he supports, and that he is a mouthpiece for. But as long as they can advocate these very destructive policies, but at the same time be immunized from them, then these sorts of things, this type of carry on will continue. You look at, say, someone out of the UK, that Rory Stewart idiot who pretends to be conservative. This is that little short dweeby dude with the 6 foot tall wife. And he's richly and handsomely rewarded by the globalist cabal, him and his wife together, working for these NGOs and so on. I mean, what work they actually do. And his job, as best I can understand it, his job is to get onto the airwaves, or radio or TV, whatever, and just to squawk about how terrible Trump is and Nazis are everywhere. And for that, he and his wife together are paid millions of dollars a year for producing nothing. And this is very much part of the globalist scene. The people that are delivering for the globalists ideologically are richly rewarded, and they don't suffer any of the consequences of the very policies that they promote and uphold. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.